and that we could really kind of get into this global membership approach from a slightly different angle than you maybe have seen before. So first and foremost, thank you for making time to learn more about this portion of what we are looking at as an opportunity to actually take the tools and resources Lions Clubs International has given us with the global membership approach and bring it to the clubs. As we Lions leaders from around the United States were looking at this, we realized that all these tools are here and all these resources from international, but there was one missing link for us anyways, and that was, what do we take actually out to the club to help them work through the process and really be able to start setting goals and achieving those goals so they keep building on that success and keep working towards improving their club experience for their current members and their potential members. So that's really where this started. So we're going to spend about an hour or so working through this, talking through this process that we've created, sharing some success stories. I think one of the most important pieces of this is understanding that this process started in the United States and Canada as the North American membership approach almost 3 years ago now. So we have some success stories to share with you all. We also have some more recent success stories to share with you that Lion Richard has experienced. So you hear some success stories about clubs who have actually used the GMA process to grow their membership and reach other goals. We're also then going to share with you what we're calling a cheat sheet. It is essentially a workshop that you can adapt to every club you go out to that will help you walk them through the process and facilitate them working through the GMA process, the global membership approach process, so that they can be successful. We're then going to wrap up with a question and answer and send you off on your way with some more information, with a follow-up also email coming out that will include the information that we cover this evening, all the slides and the cheat sheet that you need, and some other valuable resources that you'll be able to tap into as you're working through the global membership approach. So with that, I do have a third member of our team that I'm going to introduce you to right now. That is Lion Chris Gunstream from Texas. Chris has been involved with the global membership approach since it was a North American membership initiative. He headed up one of the pilot districts for the global membership or for the North American membership initiative, and has continued to work with this process in Texas to help them find ways for clubs to grow their membership. Chris had a conflict tonight, so could not join us this evening, but we are fortunate to have a recording from him about his experience working through the North American membership approach, now GMA, with the Lions in his areas, some of the results they've seen, along with some tips and tricks he learned along the way.
Of course I will, and as we all say from Texas, howdy y'all. Glad to be with you this evening, and I hope that everybody is looking forward to this session. I know that there's been a lot of work put into it by a lot of people to make sure that you get the best benefit from this. To give you a little bit about the North America or about the global membership approach, let me just say this. MD2 has been involved with the GMA process since the beginning, back when it was a North American membership initiative back in 2019, 2020. We bought into that process at MD2, and it's taken us a few years to get that going to where it really is starting to show some great dividends. And to tell you just how well it works, if you work this process, MD2 finished its year last year, the 2021-2022 Lions year, with a plus 366 of membership growth. So if you don't think the process works, believe me, if you work it, it really does work. And I'm going to share with you this evening about a couple of clubs that we have here in MD2, more specifically in District 2X1. For those of you who will not be familiar with that, that's around the Dallas area of Texas. And this is a club, the two clubs are the Italy Lions Club and also the Ferris Lions Club. What is very interesting about both of those clubs is that they went into those clubs and did a rebuild based upon the GMA approach in rebuilding those two clubs. And I'll start with the Ferris Club. And as you all know, and hopefully you do, that the process is a four-step process. It is, you're going to build a team, you're going to build a vision, you're going to then build a plan, and then finally, you're going to communicate or build success through communication. So those are the four steps. Now, what makes it very interesting is that you can take that four-step and do it as rebuilding of a club. You can take those four steps, and it's what we'd like to see happen is that clubs do that and build their own goals for what they're going to try to do. But we did this in a rebuild in Italy, Texas. And we started there with that club. That club had two members. It had a president and it had another member. But most importantly, it had a president who did not want to see that club fail. She was bound and determined, come heck or high water, she was not going to lose the charter of that club, not underneath her watch. And she just loved being a Lion. So she got a hold of her district, said, I want to rebuild this club. District said, fine, we want to put this process into place with your club. Will you buy in on us helping you do that? And she said, yes. Well, with the Italy Lions Club, they sat with, like I said, they had two members. So they needed to build a team. So district governor sent in a team to help them to do just that. They had a past council chair who was the kind of the ramrod of the whole group, if you will. He then picked some folks to come in to help work with him. So they built him a very, very good team, solid team to help start this rebuild process. From that, then they had to build a vision. And they sat down and decided what 2 or 3 things did they need to accomplish in order to start this ball rolling to rebuild this club. And they came up with about 3 things that they wanted to work on, 3 things in membership, and they came up with 3 things in service. And on top of that, they had 2 other ideas about some fundraising. So they had them a vision, and then they had to build a plan. And when I tell you they built a plan, they didn't just say, this is what we're going to do. They took the time to write it out, specify who was going to do what, who was going to do it by when, and when all this was going to take place. So they developed a plan using SMART goals. And then at the very end of all of that, when they finally got to where this was really going in the right direction, then they started to build success, and that was communicating that. So what makes this so important is that the Italy Lions Club, as I said, started with 2. By the time the year ended, they were at a plus 14 in their club. So they gained 12 members over the course of that year. That may not sound like a lot, but from a club that was circling the drain to a club that is now up to a plus 14 and is continuing to build as we move forward into this year, that is huge. That is huge numbers. I suspect that they will be somewhere at the 20 to 25 member mark by the end of this year. And that puts him in a good, strong category for good longevity and good success. The same thing happened with the Ferris Club. Ferris had 3 Lions in that club. We didn't start that process with Ferris at the beginning of last year. As a matter of fact, we didn't start that until about May of 2022. Again, we go into Ferris, we help them develop a team. Again, bringing in some extra folks. We had to build that team. We then had to build a plan, or excuse me, build a vision, then build that plan, and then communicate success. And again, that team did exactly the same thing. Ferris right now has 9 members. We've grown that club from 3 up to 9. But what is really kind of interesting about this, and we talk about building this team and about the things that can happen and how you can get people excited about what's going on within Lions, is to take a look again back at the Italy Lions Club when they did their very first fundraiser. And one of the things that they needed to do was to be able to do a fundraiser, to be able to do their first service project, so they could get the community to see that they're actually out there doing things. And their fundraiser, or their service project, was to put dictionaries in the hands of every 2nd grader in the Italy Independent School District, so that they had to have a fundraiser in order to do that. So they were able to get about 4 clubs from around their area to come in and help them to do a fundraiser, including bringing in one of the clubs had a food truck. So they brought the food truck in and they did this fundraiser that gave them the money that they needed to buy these dictionaries to put in these children's hands. Well, what was really great about that is they had plenty of press out there to make sure they had pictures and everything going on. But because of what they were able to do, they picked up the school superintendent. With that, that started the process and the ball rolling. So they got people excited around them. They got the district involved in wanting to help in the rebuild of that. And every time we see this process working and people working in this process, we start to see great things happening. The key to this is to come up with those ideas that are 2 to 3 things that the club is going to try to work on. Don't overpower anybody. Don't make it so great that we can't meet a challenge, but make it challenging enough where we want to try to meet that goal. We could see us meeting the goal, and then we move forward. Those are the 2 greatest examples of success that I can possibly give you. I have 100 more that if you ever want to sit and talk to me about them, I could certainly do that with you, because here in the state of Texas, we have seen club after club after club that has put this process into motion. And we see that they are having sustainable success by using each one of the steps of the global membership approach. And again, I think it's pretty telling when you end a year with a plus 366 after coming off a year where you were a negative 900. So we finally got this ball rolling and we are moving forward. And I'm happy to report today, again, here in MD2, we are a plus 312. So we are moving forward with this process. It works. Trust me. If you try it, you put it into action, it will work for you. Thank you.
Listening to Chris always inspires me to want to get out and start working with clubs right now. You know, they're 3 years into the process and seeing a plus 300 in membership after they were down at a minus 900 in that multiple district. That's because they have taken and they've embraced the process. And now the clubs are embracing it because they're seeing this success. And the beauty of this program is if you can be start with a club of 2 and make this process work and turn that club around, imagine what you can do with all the clubs in your area. So let's hear a little bit more inspiration from my good friend, Lion Richard Stevenson. Richard is a GAT area leader here in the southwestern part of the western part of the United States, excuse me. He also is one of the founders of the Global Lions Forum on Facebook. And he's been working with this process in the last year or so with his clubs in his area and has some great tips and insight to share, and also some other success stories from his portion of the world. So Richard, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lion Jody. And I've got to tell you, I am really excited to be talking to you about the Global Lions approach tonight. And I have to tell you, first of all, I'm blessed. And I'm blessed because not only am I a Lion, but I have the best job in Lionism. I'm a GAT area leader where I get to work with and serve the Lions of Idaho, New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah. And it's very exciting to work with those groups. The first thing I'd like to say is, we're not going to give you a PhD in the Global Lions approach tonight. What we're going to do is show you how to use it in your club. And just like your club, your way, there's your GMA, your way. And for me, I like to describe it in a little different terms. I like to say, where are we now? And that's really the SWOT analysis. The team building is whoever showed up, who's ever active in the club. That's pretty simple. And where do we want to be? That's our vision. And how do we get there? That's the build a plan. So for me, it's very simple 3 phrases. And the 2 districts I have the joy of working with are Idaho and Utah. And I'd like to first tell you about the Daggett County Lions Club. They're not at the end of the world, but you can see it from there. They're right next to the Flaming Gorge at the northern part of Utah. And they had 4 members. and they did a SWOT analysis. They looked around and said, we've got 4 members and we're in our 90s. That was their SWOT analysis. What are we going to do? And they put on a rodeo in a town of 300 people. And so their vision was, we don't want that rodeo to fail. This town deserves a Lions Club, and we want to make sure it has one. So their build-a-plan was pretty simple. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to call our district governor, Carol Eisenberg, and her husband, past council chair Mike Eisenberg, and their council chair, Jim Knight. And we're going to ask them for help. Well, they all jumped in a car, a whole gang of them, drove 3 hours to get out there to Manila, Utah, and they went to the only bar in town. That was the hub, and they invited darn near the whole town, and they had an information meeting, and they said, we want to keep this rodeo club alive. Do you want to do that too? And the people in town said yes. They went from 4 lions to 24 lions. They were able to turn that club around, and that rodeo is going to be around for quite a while. And that was just one club up there. The second club in Utah that I'd like to talk about is the Bountiful Lions Club. And this was kind of an interesting experience when I was up there at the convention, and there were 2 lions there, Lion Catherine Birch and Lion Rosie Meserver. And I said, I understand you've been using the GMA and you've had success with it. And they were both very, very.
Oops, we seem to have lost Richard. So hopefully he will be able to join us again in the very near future. And is in order to keep us moving with Richard. Well, no, he's back. Richard,
I'm in Mexico City. I have a slow internet, so please bear with me. So
all right.
I was able to meet these 2 lions, Lion Catherine and Lion Rosie, and I said, explain to me how you use the GMA to help your club. And they said, well, ID BJ Blankenship came in a year and a half ago, and told them about the GMA. And so they sat down and they walked through all the steps, and they put together a membership growth event. And at the end of that membership growth event, they had managed to get +7 new members. Now that district so far this year has brought in 46 new lions. And for some of our larger districts, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but this is a very small district. 46 is a wonderful number for them. They're doing great. Now, if we have a moment, I'd like to go on up to Idaho, where we have 39W, and we have past District Governor Kathy Donahue working with District Governor Betty Simpson. And they've taken the GMA out to 4 different clubs, and they've worked it. And those clubs so far have been able to start a new branch, 4 new members on that. They've done an informational meeting, 3 new members. Eagle Lions has 4 new members. Emmett has 5 new members. This is working for them. And so far, they've brought in 33 new lions this year. Lastly, I'd like to go up to, I think that covers it for me. I'm done with that. Didn't mean to get excited there. So I'd like to just say one thing, and that is our goal for this evening is to get you and get your clubs to just try the GMA. It works, and it works at a club level. And it's just a simple way of taking that first step. One of the things we've seen in the Global Lions Forum over the past 5 years is people keep asking, what are the secrets to bringing in new members? And there really are no secrets. We all know how to do it. Everyone says we know how to do it. The key is to take that first step. And what the GMA does is to get you to take that first step and show you how. And that was what Chris was talking about earlier, was to say, let's just pick 3 simple goals. And maybe that first one is to say, let's just do this by the next meeting. We're going to take that first step. So I hope we've been convincing in getting you to talk to your clubs and try the GMA on a club level. Thank you so much. Back to you, Jody.
Thank you, Richard. You know, as I hear about more and more of these success stories, we all come from areas that have clubs that are struggling. They may not be down to 2 members, but they may be at 9 members or 12 or 15 members. And the global membership approach can help them turn around something they've been struggling with for a very long time. At least in our case, something our district has been struggling with on how to help them. Because it's not our jobs to turn them around. It's our jobs to give them the tools and resources that they need to be able to turn their own clubs around. When you look at clubs in the mid-20s, when you look at the clubs in the hundreds, the 40s, whatever the club number is, the club size is, being a strong Lions Club is really about meeting your members' needs and your community needs. And this global membership approach process helps clubs get there. It helps them take a look at how they're doing business, and then it helps them put a plan in place that's going to help them strengthen their club for their current members, their future members, and to be able better serve the community needs. So with those great examples of these success stories that we're seeing, some of the success stories we're seeing, I'm going to take the next period of time here and share with you our current version of what we call the GMA for Clubs cheat sheet workshop. Lots of words together, but as we were looking at it as leaders that have been working with the GMA for a while and looking for ways to get this out to the club level, we realized that we needed to look at finding a group of facilitators. People would go in and work with the clubs one-on-one, and then give them the resource they need to help the club work through the process. We also realized that whatever we provided needed to be flexible. So you could work with that club with 2 people, or you could be working with a club that's got 50 members. And both could be successful because we have a process that you can adjust as you go along, and it's flexible and customizable. So with that, I am going to share a screen here with you.
You know what we did was we sat down and we said, how do we make this process that is a very sophisticated project at the district level, which takes 4 hours of instruction to go through, how do we take it down to a club level? And one of the things we did was to say, let's just sit down and try it. And we took out some Post-it notes and a flip chart, because as we know, not every club has a screen that you can put slides up on. And we also notice that we don't have 4 hours to talk to normal clubs. Normally, we have a club meeting in which we're talking about. Maybe we could have a little extended meeting, but we're dealing with a limited amount of time. And we're also introducing something that we don't want to make it overly sophisticated, overly complicated. So we broke it down into Post-it notes, and that is the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, which, as we all know, is the SWOT analysis, and the SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, actionable. What's the next one? There we go.
Realistic and time bound.
There we go. And time bound. It's up. Back to you, Jody.
Look what happens when you actually get don't accidentally close the file that you thought you had open. So, all right. Thank you guys for your patience, and thank you, Richard, for sharing those additional thoughts that are going to lead into what we're talking about next. So what we're showing you here now is the cheat sheet, something you can either use as a PowerPoint, but most likely recommend just taking out to the clubs and working them through this process, as Richard was talking about. The size of this is a standard letter size, so 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I'm going to zoom in now, though, so you can see better what we're talking about as we work through this. So if you've seen, we're going to look at this resource a little bit later. The Plan for Your Club Success, the Global Membership Approach, is a workbook that Lions Clubs International put together for clubs to be able to use in working through this process. This is the same graphic, so it will match as you're looking through things. As we were thinking as a team about what you would need to know to be able to present to the clubs, we came up with a list of thoughts for facilitators, or tips, whatever you'd like to call it. First and foremost, not everyone has been a facilitator before. Many of us have been presenters. When you present a topic, you have a certain slide deck, or you have a certain topic you present, and there's not as much interaction with the audience. This is actually a workshop. Your role in taking it to a club or someone you bring in is to help facilitate the club working through the process. So that means you give them some information, and then you let them work through and come up with the answers based on whatever the question is for their specific club. We want to make sure, and we're going to spend a little more time here than on some of the other slides to make sure we kind of cover some of the things you need to consider. Number one, even if the club normally meets in a bar, or a restaurant that's a little loud, we strongly recommend you work with the club to find a location that's got a dedicated space that doesn't have a lot of distractions, so that you can work together with them and they can be focused during that time and not interrupted. We also recommend that you look at breaking this down. If you've only got 20 minutes, figure out what's important, do it in 20 minutes. But really sitting down for an hour with that group is probably the ideal amount of time. You'll get through enough of their decisions that they can go back and think about it again, and then come back and work through whatever else is necessary. Again, you're facilitating. It's an open and interactive conversation amongst the members or the team that's available at the time to work through this. Richard touched on this, and we can't say this enough. GMA is a process. That means it's not a one and done. It's not a program. It is a process, and it's a process based on tried and true business planning processes that we just haven't used as Lions before. And now International has brought it down to where we are looking to use these processes to help our clubs be successful in planning for success, implementing the plan, and then celebrating the success. And I'll go back to, again, it is flexible. And it ties into the next bullet of know your audience. You have to know your audience and work with the club leadership on the front end if you're going to be a facilitator to be able to customize this workshop to best meet the needs of the audience. KISS, keep it simple, stupid, is so important. Sometimes we get too fancy with what we're trying to present, and we dazzle people, and we're so busy dazzling them that the message gets lost. Keeping it simple in this case means using the least technology and the easiest way possible to get the clubs to come up with their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then their goals, and then build whatever the action plan will be. And we're going to look at that further in a few moments. And the last piece on this that we're going to cover right now is really to talk about the documentation. Document the results of these planning sessions you have, and make sure that you have follow-up with the club to help them keep on track as they're moving through the process. As a facilitator, you are the subject matter expert, the SME, as they call it in the tech world. And it's important that you be available to them to help them as they work through this. Because like any plan, you have a vision and an idea, but that changes as reality happens and new threats and opportunities or new whatever it is comes up. This plan needs to be adjusted and moved forward off and on as you go throughout the process. You'll see here, we also have down here some ideas for how you might want to set up a room if possible. As Richard mentioned earlier, whatever space you end up with is a space you're going to be working in. These are ideals and recommendations. You make this work for the situation that you find yourself in. So we talk about different colored sticky notes and room setup and all of those things. Whatever you can do, it's great if you can follow this. If you can't, you just go with it and get the job done, because it's all about getting the clubs, setting goals, and then meeting those goals, and then building on that and setting more goals to success. We also add a few more facilitator tips, and then a little bit about the goals that we're going to talk about again here in a moment. Once we get through that section, we're actually into the actual workshop slides themselves. And we start with this quote from Henry Ford that's a really great way to set the mood, if you will, with the club members. And I'm going to read it because I think it's brilliant. If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got. And if you're not using a slide presentation, you're going to present that as the open for the session. And then you're going to turn around and ask the people in the room, what happens if we continue as we are? Where will our club be in 5 years? You give them an opportunity to answer and you work from there. Before I go on to the next slide, I want to point something out to you about the way we've structured this cheat sheet. You'll notice here that if it is script or something you should say along those lines, it's in normal type. If it's something that is an action or you're looking to elicit response from the attendees, it's in italics so that you can tell the difference between the two, just so you're aware of that. So you allow them to answer the question about if they continue as they are, where will they be in 5 years? And then you start working into what the global membership approach is. And we've taken this to the club level by focusing on 4 areas about revitalizing the club with new members, remotivating the current members, sharing achievements with the community, and really the big thing is that yellow circle on the side about changing lives and having fun. You'll see down below, there's some script there that you can use in the conversation with the club as you're working through the workshop, or you can write your own or adapt this to whatever the needs of the club. For many of you who've been involved with a GMA or seen a global membership approach presentation, you'll recognize this roadmap for success very quickly. It is build a team, build a vision, build a plan, build success, and then we should have an arrow that goes all the way back because you're going to keep doing that as an ongoing process. We give you some suggested script here again, and a little bit more on this, that we ask you to talk to the club about how important the continuous communication is throughout this process to all the club members to the success of the GMA. And that really means communicating the successes and achievements that are going on and celebrating those, but also sharing the struggles that the organizing team is running into as they're working through it. Because as you do that, the club, the entire membership has buy-in, and they keep their excitement and enthusiasm going. So it's an important part of the process as you're working, explaining what this is to these members, that be emphasized at that point. At that point, you ask them if there's any questions, and then you move on to the first step, which is build a team. I'm going to point out to you a couple of flexible things here. You'll note that there really is all script here, or all notes. There's no real script. And this is where you start customizing based on the specific club. So for a larger club that's got more organization, you may ask the club officers to build their team before the workshop and invite them to a specific date of a workshop. For smaller clubs, whoever shows up at that workshop or that club meeting that you're presenting this workshop at is the team, and they will get the ball rolling with the process. As you look through this, when it comes to action planning, at some point, all club members should be included in that action planning step so that they have buy-in and they have ownership of the goals and they agree upon them. And you just go from there. So this first piece, if you're doing a smaller club or working with a smaller club, you may not even talk about this. This is one of those pieces that you make a decision based on the needs of that specific club to either use it or not use it, and use it appropriately for the need of that specific club. And this is, by the way, a brilliant idea that Richard came up with. As we were working through this process, we started, as Richard mentioned, with an overall PowerPoint presentation, and he took a step back and said, hey, when I go out to these smaller clubs, how do we capture this information and get input from all members and do it efficiently and effectively? And he came up with the concept of using sticky notes and a large flip chart, or just a wall in the room that you're in. And essentially the concept of this is we're going to work them through where are we now with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then each person that's in the room, and I'm going to walk through the strengths ones right now with where are we now. You give each of the participants 3 sticky notes, all the same color, and you ask them to write on each sticky note one of the strengths of the club for up to 3 strengths. When they're done, they put those sticky notes on the wall or on the giant flip chart. And then once everyone's pieces are, sticky notes are on the flip chart, you then talk to them and work them through and ask them which one of the strengths is the strongest, and rank them from strongest to weakest of their strengths. Help let them do that. So you read off all of the items that are on the sticky notes, and then you help them work through deciding and determining which ranking them in order of strongest to weakest. You leave those or either move that flip chart off to the side or move to a different part of the room to then do the exact same thing with weaknesses. And in this case, we are using different colored sticky notes, Post-it notes, excuse me, to actually just kind of change up what you're seeing there. So in this case, Richard, by the way, who has beautiful penmanship, put this together with pink as the weaknesses. You're going to go through that same process of giving them each 3 sticky notes and giving them an opportunity to share up to 3 weaknesses. Once they've all shared them and put them on the wall or that flip chart, you'll rank them again with the weaknesses. You're going to do the same with opportunities and the same with threats. Now, I want to stop here for a moment and bring up something very important. As our team of Lions from across the US has been talking about this process, we've had a lot of discussion about how much to include with these clubs. And again, it goes back to the complexity or size of the club. So for many clubs, just talking about strengths and weaknesses with those smaller clubs in particular is all you need to get them started with goal setting. And it's a perfect place to start because as they recognize their strengths and weaknesses, a lot of these other pieces are going to fall into place as they work through goal setting and action planning. For larger clubs that have a more of a structure, more of a committee structure, working through all 4 of the areas, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, is probably more important and will take more time because you have all 4 areas to work through. How you decide what to do with this, again, goes back to knowing your audience, knowing the club and what their needs are at that point. And you find that out by talking to the officers in advance so you know where to go with the actual workshop itself. Once you get through working through the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, it's time to take a break. And that break, it is, take 5 or 10 minutes, make sure they come back. Even if you're working with a small group in a club, let them get up from their seats, go get a drink of water, use the facilities, whatever they need. And it's important so that they can give not only their body a rest, but their brain a rest because they're thinking now. They're thinking about our strengths and our weaknesses and our opportunities and threats. Now you can bring them back, refocus them, and start talking about where do we want to be. This is where we start basically setting up what the goals are going to be for the club as they're moving through. And we're going to talk a moment about the goals, but this is the front end of that. And it's the same thing we did with the SWOT analysis. You give them each 3 sticky notes, and they can write up to 3 items that they believe are vital to where they want to be. It could be a service idea for a new service project. It could be we want to grow the club. We want to double our membership size in the next year. It could be whatever it is that the club is looking to focus on. Have them put it on the board. And at this point, you're going to again rank them. I apologize. Apparently our senior citizen Kat has now joined us. So everyone say hi to George and hopefully he'll stop yowling now. You're going to then put that flip chart, move that over to another portion of the wall, because now you have them thinking about goals and what they want to do. With these goals in mind of where they want to be, this, once they're ranked, is going to give you the top 3, the first 3 things for them to start to work on and setting goals as you move forward, because that is truly the next step. How do we get there is our goals. You've already got them through the SWOT analysis. Now you're going to help them take it and move it to the goal level. And with that, I'm going to bring up the goals should be SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. They should also leverage the strengths and opportunities that the club has identified and help them overcome any weaknesses or threats. You're going to again go through and see how these goals play out on the sticky notes. And once you have that, it's time to move to action planning. This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. This is where you're going to help them work through some initial goals or initial action planning that's going to make it so they can experience some success that's going to allow them to build for the future. So we're suggesting that you get them to agree upon 3 goals that they want to work on right now. 2 of them that are short term and easy to achieve, and 1 that might be a little bit more longer term or more complex. As you've got them working on just determining these 3 goals, you're going to give an example of something that's going to help them understand what the action plan should, what a SMART goal should look like, and what the action plan would be. So for example, if the club wants to grow their membership, you're going to help say, here's a great goal if you're looking to grow your membership. By the next meeting, Secretary John is going to order 25 membership applications and 10 new member kits from Lions Clubs International. That is a SMART goal and something that's easily achievable. It gets the action plan of who's doing it, when it needs to be done, and how it's going to be done. Covers all of it. You're then going to break to help them work through this process, if appropriate, and if there's time, you can either help them work through as a group the rest of the action plans for those 3 goals that they've identified, or for a larger group, we've given you some ideas about breaking the group into smaller subgroups and allowing them to work on individual action plans for those 3 goals that they've identified. So one of the examples we look at here, so if you're looking at 2 short-term goals and easier goals and 1 larger goal, you can break the group into different numbers. So for the easy goals, it's not going to take that many people to come up with the action plan for it. But for the larger part, for a larger, more complex goal, you may want to break it out with more people working on that goal and action plan than the other 2 groups. I hope that makes sense, and it may make sense as you get more into this. We're going to share our contact information here in a few minutes so that you can reach out to us. The last thing you do with them is, where do we go from here? Talk with the participants and have them determine how they're going to document that day's work, all of the things you've gone through. How are they going to distribute and share it to all of their club members? Because no matter who was at that meeting, all members need to be on board with what's going on. Start talking about how they're going to monitor the action plans during their meetings. What are their ideas on adjusting goals and plans when things change? And then how are they going to recognize and celebrate success? From a facilitator standpoint, it's really important that you work with that group or with the club officers to let them all know that you are there as an ongoing support person for them, and make plans for how you're going to follow up with the club, whether it be attending their meetings, whether it's an online Zoom call or a quick phone call with the officers, or how you're going to be able to stay in touch with that club. So that's our cheat sheet. It's a lot of information, and we keep saying keep it simple, stupid, but it gets complicated when you're trying to meet all the needs of everyone. Richard, I see you waving your hands back there.
I have a couple of comments. Number 1, the chat was fantastic. I think we had every expert on the GMA in the world here sharing good ideas. So PCC John Eads was here, and he was making comments throughout the thing. So it was an education by reading it. Number 2, we have CC Michelle Mosley Moore here tonight, and she was the one that gave me the idea to, instead of saying to your club, we're going to have this meeting, say to them, we're going to have a service project. And that service project is to serve the club, because the idea is more members will show up for a service project than they will for a club meeting. I thought that was a clever idea.
I have a couple of other pieces to share with you and resources from Lions International, if you're not aware of, that you desperately need to be aware of as a facilitator or someone who's going to work with clubs, your own or others, on the global membership approach. And here's the basis of it. This is you'll note this graphic looks familiar. As I mentioned, this is the Plan for Your Club Success Global Membership Approach Workbook. This allows clubs to work through the process on their own, or have a place to capture the information that they're getting as we work through the workshop we just showed you, the cheat sheet workshop. The other consideration If you've got a club that even going through the basic of a SWOT analysis and any sort of formality will be a challenge, the Club Excellence Award is a fantastic way to get clubs moving. If you are familiar with the Club Excellence Award, it basically has you focus on membership, service, leadership, and organizational excellence and marketing. If the GMA Global Membership Approach process seems like too much, you can use this the Club Excellence Award application to help the clubs set goals, to help them reach and create action plans to help them attain and receive this Global Excellence Award application, Global Excellence Award. So it's another tool in your belt to help customize for what the club's needs are and how they're best going to receive it. Couple of other pieces. I am showing you here in the service toolkit from the international website is something called a club and community needs assessment. As you're looking at a full SWOT analysis, not only do you need input from your members, but it's great if you can get input from your community. International has put together a great toolkit here for that. And if you have a club that's interested in or able to or willing to work through that, that's fantastic. But so often, again, we make things more difficult than we need to. And a club and community needs assessment or a community needs assessment can be as simple as sending your members out to have coffee with the police chief and ask what's going on and what needs they're seeing that your club could help out with. It could be as simple as having a meeting with your local food bank or whoever's working with hunger, working with the homeless, or whatever it is, talking to people in your community that are already out serving to find out what their needs are so your club can adapt the needs that you're working with or that the projects you're working with to better suit the current needs of your community potentially. And the last thing I want to share with you right this moment before I share our contact information and open this up for questions is this is a resource. This is actually the Global Membership Approach page for zone and region chairs. And it does a really great job of getting you quickly to some resources that come from LCI, specifically for clubs that are interested in more detail. The action plan template is downloadable from here, a SWOT worksheet, a number of other resources that you might want to tap into as you're working through it. And the goal being not to overwhelm the clubs or overwhelm you, but to make sure you're aware of the different resources that are available that you can use to help the clubs be able to get started setting goals, reaching those goals, and then attaining the goals and making it better. And improving their service and their members' experience. Oh, Richard.
Jody, I would say if you're looking for that GMA in the LCI website, you won't find it by looking for GMA. You'll find it by looking for region chair and zone chair and then looking around inside that little box.
You know what I'm going to do right now that I'm not sharing a screen anymore? I am actually going to share the link to that exact page as soon as I can get my system to catch up here. So, Richard, how about we start taking some questions here in the time we've got? So if you guys would like to start dropping some questions in the chat, I will get you that information. And Richard, if you can monitor that for the moment, that'd be fantastic.
I'm here monitoring. Questions can be typed in as we speak.
Well, this silly thing is bouncing a lot over here. Here it is.
I'm seeing a thank you, but not a question yet.
I am awesome. I'm dropping this into, how can we contact directly? That is a great question. And one I am working on getting you the links for. I'm going to share Richard's contact information in the chat. And I'm going to share my own. And I'm also going to share Chris Gunstream's in the chat, if I can get this thing to stop bouncing so much.
I can be found on the Global Lions Forum Facebook group. Just type Global Lions Forum into the Google and you'll find us.
Sorry, I don't seem to be finding, something happened with my system and it crashed a number of things, and I'm going to send this to you And I also can be found in the forum under Lion Jody Burmester if you're looking for me.
Jody, I have to correct you.
Did I type it wrong?
No, you did fine. You did okay.
So I'm getting a question about the presentation format. We do have the presentation format that you're welcome to. When we send you the document that's going to be the follow-up email, it will have a PowerPoint in it, and that's where you will adapt and adjust and customize. Everyone will customize through that PowerPoint. If you want to use that PowerPoint to present to the clubs, you can adapt what's there, or you can use the slides as they sit right now. When I shared with you these screens, let me do this again and just show you what's, just as a reminder of what's there. But when you look at this, this is actually here where it says what's next with this backdrop is actually a PowerPoint slide that if you choose to use this as a PowerPoint while working with the club, these are the PowerPoint slides with the graphics that will show up while you're talking them through the process. Mike, did that answer your question? Is there a YouTube video on doing this process as an example? Gary, that is a fantastic question and one we had not considered at this point. Richard, I think we should actually do that. I will let you guys know what was interesting for me. Richard actually took, like we talked about earlier, and made this into this concept of using the sticky notes. I used this exact same concept today to work with one of our districts here in Wisconsin to help them put their goals together for this next Lions year. And we did it slightly differently, but the plan worked perfectly, and I wish we could have done that. So let's reach out to our team and see if we can get someone to actually do a videotape a session with a club that they're working with, and we'll see if we can get that out there for you.
We're also considering putting together a Facebook group for us. That's all of you and us, not people wandering in off the street, but just those of us that are attempting to take the GMA to clubs where we can share best practices and so forth. And I wonder if folks think that's a good idea, we'd be more than happy to set that up and monitor it. So let us know.
I'm scrolling through the chat here to see what else we got. Yes, this session has been recorded. It will be sent out to you, the link to it. You'll be able to find it on the Lions Virtual YouTube channel, and we'll also send out the information through the Global Lions Forum when it's ready. So this is a great question for Mary Masters. Looking to use GMA, who is the best resource for our club and for the district? Mary, I'm going to take a stab at this unless Richard wants to jump in on that. And say that the best resource is going to be, hopefully your multiple district in your district have global membership approach coordinators already assigned. They would be a fantastic resource for you to help roll this out. Your district global action team, if you don't have a global membership approach coordinator, is another great place. And I will tell you that your district governors and your first vice district governor have all been trained extensively on the global membership approach. So if none of those others are available, or if you are comfortable, contact your district governor or your first vice district governor so that they can help you define if there's someone else, or if they can help you work through the process.
I would also add, I think clubs have people who with a little bit of help could facilitate this for their club. Although we've also heard some other folks say that it's best to have an outsider. But if I were in a small club and we didn't have an outsider available, I would sit down and try to do it inside our club as just a conversation.
Great point. And it's very, yeah, I totally agree, Richard. Here's another question here about who should you start with from a district level? Should you start with smaller clubs or larger clubs? My opinion, I think that you should put this idea out there to all your clubs, and you should start with the clubs that have a fire to follow it through and want to do it. Offer it to all of them. And once you get some success with a couple of clubs, like Chris was talking about earlier, you start building on that. Clubs see a success and see that change, and you start sharing their success stories with other clubs. And then you can start looking at a plan potentially as a district team as to which clubs you'd like to approach and how you'd like to approach them.
And think of this like dating. It's not one and done. After you do the first one and you have 3 goals, you need to stay around and then perhaps help with the next 3 goals and maybe the next 3 goals, and be prepared to stick around for a while, just like a guiding lion would, until they're up and running on their own.
Great point, Richard. So there is a question about having a specific person identified in charge of the GMA or global membership approach. All district governors were encouraged to assign a global membership approach chairperson or coordinator, whatever you choose to call it, the last couple of years. Your district may or may not have one. That's when I would suggest reaching out to your governor and asking for the support from them to find out what your district's setup is. It goes back to your district your way, your club your way, all your ways. So that would be where I would start. Richard, this is a good one for you. How much time should we allocate for the club sessions? Would you recommend?
I think an hour is a good place to start. If you go through at a high level with a small group, a larger group might take a little longer. But by the end of an hour, people are getting a little antsy.
I agree. And the reality is, as Richard said, this is not a one and done. So if you start with small goals, and we'll share with you some of the other sample goals that Richard had created for the original presentation, because we created some sample goals to help you give some feeder goals potentially to the clubs as you're working with them. So we will share those with you as well. So you've got those in your back pocket, so to speak, about some potential goals the clubs might be interested in. And they're in the common areas of, how do we start, starting a new service project? How, like I mentioned earlier about getting the membership applications in or reaching out to past members. So it's things that you can use to help give them an idea to launch them to be able to come up with the ideas. I'm checking for more things here in the chat. I think I'm not seeing a lot more questions here. If there's more questions, as Richard said, we are here. I mean, Richard and I were talking about this before this evening's call. This approach we feel so strongly about that we're going to do anything possible and everything within our power to support each of you in taking this out and being successful with the clubs. Because this process works with every club because it's designed for them to define it themselves. And it's so important that we as leaders, either at the club level, the district level, or beyond, are able to help these clubs recognize that they can do this. I mean, how many of you, show of hands, have been involved and seen the same clubs struggling with the same fight for so long, not knowing how to get the job done? This process gives them step by step a way to be successful and see that success. Heck, if a club in Texas can grow from 2 members to 14 members in 1 year, and by year 2, almost double again, come on. It seems like such a no-brainer to me. I would add one other piece to this. In those smaller clubs, and I don't remember Chris mentioning this on this particular recording, but in those smaller clubs, your district team is going to need to be prepared to really support them and support them heavily. Be there with them step by step, working on the service projects with them, helping them, whatever it is they've defined as their goals, because they don't have enough bodies to actually get the job done on their own necessarily. And they may or may not have the resources or knowledge in some of these areas as well. So your district team is going to need to be there to support them. Club member satisfaction surveys. There are some of those in the GMA and the global membership approach workbook that we looked at a little bit ago. I will also say that club member surveys are hugely important in this process to get that information in if you've got a club that's got the ability to do this. And we've seen everything from using a survey monkey or platform to collect the survey responses to as simple as giving each club member at a meeting a piece of paper, blank sheet of paper. On the top half of the piece of paper, They write down the answer to the question of, if I could keep one thing about our club, it would be. Give them a few minutes to do that. On the bottom half of that piece of paper, if I could change one thing about our club, it would be. You will get a wide variety of answers, but they will generally fall into 3 or 4 different categories that will allow you then, as a facilitator working with the club leadership and that team, to really understand what the club's needs are.
Jody, there was a question about some sample goals, and if you look on the slides, there are some sample SWOT answers and some sample goals that came up in a generic way when we did our club. I tried to make it more generic than specific to our club. Your club might be more specific. Another question that comes to mind, Jody, is, are there clubs that you don't want to take this to? And I think the answer is, if the club is really excited about doing this and open to growing and planning and so forth, they're a great candidate. And as we do this, as each of us does this, we're going to get better and better. And there are some clubs that are just not interested. And I think that's a reality of our world.
I think that's a great point, Richard. Hey, we've got a question about adapting this GMA for Leo clubs. Go for it. Our philosophy is that the more clubs, whether they be a Lion or Leo club, that adopt this concept of working through the GMA process, the more successful we all are, because we're successful when we have members serving their communities and making a difference. And the more members we have, the more service we can give. So the more we can spread this across the globe, the better off we all are. Barbara, your club with not having a membership chair, can the IPP become the international or immediate past president become the membership person? Any one member of your club can be the membership person, a membership chairperson. It's really up to your club how you define it. A lot of smaller clubs don't have a membership chairperson, but it's really important that one person at least take responsibility for helping to pull this together and make sure that people continue to work through meeting the goals that you set and the timelines you set. So having 1 or 2 people to drive that, whatever their title might be, is really important to the success of this.
The best person you can have in any job is the one who wants the job and wants to be successful regardless of what they've done before. So I wouldn't look necessarily to find the person with the most previous job titles. I'd look for the one that wants the job.
And take advantage of the fact, if you have someone that's in sales in your club, and for a profession, they're a professional salesperson, they are a fantastic person to help you work through this, and also to get out there and help you recruit new members and create the materials or whatever the hype is, or the promotional materials. Those people are gold. And if you don't have that person in your club right now, go out and find them. So as you're working through this process, they can help you, or invite them to come in as a facilitator to help you work through the process, and then invite them to join your club. Whatever it is, finding those professionals that have that skill set and natural tendencies is really important. We're going to wrap this up with just a reminder about how important this process is. I think we've probably really hit that a lot, but I don't know that we can hit it too much. In most areas of the world, especially constitutional areas 1 and 2, which is the US and Canada, we've been around for a long time, and we're at a point in our cycle that we really need to find a way to reinvigorate our clubs. And the rest of the world is rapidly getting there as well. So taking a look at how we can give the clubs the tools they need to succeed is vital to our ongoing success.
And anyone who would like to chat with me at any time, please feel free. And another person you might think about asking is your GAT area leader, because the GMA is their Bible. That's what they're working from, and they'd be more than happy to help, I think.
Great point, Richard. And thank you so much for taking the time and being willing to work with the clubs to help them be successful with a global membership approach and whatever other needs they have. You are key to this process. Without you, this doesn't happen. So please, please, please also share your successes and challenges with this. This is a moving target, if you will. We're all learning as we go out and present. So the more that you can give feedback on that what we've given you, the better off we are for everybody. And can't wait to hear how it goes.
And thank you for being Lions and Lions leaders.
That's it, guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you down the road.